Alright, so I've determined that this is going to be the visible front edge, and this is going to be the top. I'm going to chamfer this corner later, but this is going to be the countertop. Obviously it's not going to be white melamine, but it's going to fit in there and it's going to sit flush. I've determined this is 7/8 of an inch wide. So what I'm going to do is I want my finish counter size to be 26 by 73 or 26 by 63, which means that I need the actual plywood to be 25 1/8 by 62 1/8. So let's rip that to size, cut it up, and then we'll get our edging on. You definitely want to have a zero clearance insert when you're cross cutting the grain, and you want to cut good side up because you still will get a bit of tear out with the zero clearance insert. But I'm going to cut mine on the sled, so anyway, we'll go over that after. But definitely always cut good side up with the blade. That way your blade is pushing down into the material, and instead of tearing out, the material just is supported by the core of the plywood. So I want to cut a nice clean edge on this. So let's rip this through and let's get this show on the road. So I got a nice clean edge, and I've got the factory edge here on the back, but it's going up against the wall. It's pretty clean, and I'm trying to maximize my depth here because I'm really close on material. I don't have much to spare. So let's cross cut this thing and put our edging on. I'm going to put, there's another video that I'm going to make on how to make this crosscut sled. It's an essential tool for a cabinet maker, all that stuff, but it's a great tool. If you've got a table saw, you should have a crosscut sled. It's worth its weight in gold. So let's get this thing cross-cut and get this show on the road. So when you're cross-cutting this thing, again, good side up, and you got to be very mindful in the corner when you get to the very end. So I'm going to slow right down, make sure I don't get any blowout in this direction. So let's cut this thing. So this is our piece. This is my leading edge, my front edge, and this piece of counter is going in a corner. So that there's a wall on that side, a wall on this side. So, and it's getting backsplash. So I'm not too concerned about what those back edges look like. So you'll see the difference here. You get a really nice clean edge, perfectly cut, and you'll notice that I raised the blade, and this is why. You see there's some chipping here on the back. You can see there's a few chips, especially in the beginning here. So, which is not, it's still okay, but it just gets way better. I can even feel it with my fingers. It's a bit rough back here, and it really smooths out about here. So you got a nice clean corner, and let's get going with this glue up. So this piece is going to go right here, nice and flush. It's perfect. Oh, it's going to be gorgeous. I'm going to miter this corner here, and then do the same thing on the front edge. So I always cut my material a little bit long. You always want to make sure, be mindful of that thin veneer. So there's not much to it. If you look at this offcut I've got, this is your typical ply on plywood. The veneer here, I don't know if you can focus, if I can focus, but there's nothing to it. Like, it's literally, I think it's a 64th of an inch. So even when you go to sand and stuff like that, you gotta be very careful you don't go right through. So we'll cut our miter next, and the way I like to do that is I'm gonna line up the end. I use regular pencils for everything. I don't use carpenter pencils unless I'm framing. So a nice sharp point on there, and you get a nice accurate mark. So that's my mark. Transfer it up, and I'll just, to be safe, I'll make a mark like that, just so that I know what the angle is supposed to be. So slide this guy back. I'll do the same for this guy. So he's flush at the back. So let's get the miter saw. So I've got a nice new blade on there. And one thing is, when you're cutting into any finished material like this, it's not like when you're cutting 2x4s, it doesn't really matter. What you really want to do is you want to really make the teeth work for you. So it's just, you're really trying to concentrate on tear out. So I wouldn't just put this in any which direction. I'm putting it this way because this is my front corner, and I really want the teeth to pull the material in so I don't get any chipping on this front edge. So, and I'm going to cut it, I'm not going to go right to my mark right away. I'm going to cut this about 1/8 of an inch too big, 1/4 of an inch too big, and I'm going to cut both, and I'll work my miter in to make sure it fits. So let's cut this for the first pass. It's got a pretty nice cut here. It's a nice sharp corner. There's some really minor chipping on the top, but nothing that's not sandable. So let's try this out. Alright, so we've got both miters rough cut, and you're going to want to raise up your material. So I'm going to slide this right on the table, and I've got these bench cookies that I use for sanding. They're great for a lot of things, and it just so happens to be slightly thicker than where the plywood is going to rest, so it's perfect. So I'm just going to put these underneath in the 4 corners, and I'll put a link in the description for these guys. These things are awesome. Great little things to have in the shop. Dust off your workpiece. Alright, let's try to fit these pieces here. Get this one on the front, this guy on the side, and let's see how our miter closes up. Really couldn't ask for better than that. Let me show you. So obviously this is going to be recessed a little bit, but a nice clean miter, clean in the front, all along the side, so nice and tight. So we're going to clamp this together. I'm going to cut these to length first. So I've got this thing where I want it to be. I'm actually going to mark the other end, and I'm going to cut it on 90 degrees. So we're getting tear out on the inside, right? So this is the difference. If you don't put the piece in the right direction, you'll get tear out. So this is the piece that you're going to see, and these 2 edges are going to be the visible ones. This one's got a bit of tear out, really minor, but if you had this amount of tear out on the front edge, I mean, it's sandable, but it takes away from the workpiece, and you try to avoid it. So make the blade work for you, and put it in the right direction. Now we're ready for a glue up. I just want to give these a quick shot with the sandpaper, and I don't want to run the power sander on this thing, because the power sander, the base of it has a bit of a cushion on it, and what could happen is it could roll over, the cushion could go over the edge and kind of break my corner a little bit, and I don't want that. So I'm just going to clean up my pencil marks and any little defects, so it'll only take a minute. Alright, so I've got everything I need to get this glue up going here, and yeah, let's do it. So I got some pipe clamps. It's probably too many, but better too much than not enough. So we're going to take our, I just like using Type Bond 3, so I use Type Bond for pretty much anything. It's a great glue. It's probably, I think it's the strongest glue on the market for a, for this type of glue. So for this, you want to, don't be shy. So keep a wet rag handy, and get it everywhere. So you really want to coat both surfaces, and I got my trusty water jug here. Get a nice wet rag for cleanup, and so a good way to spread your glue is with a little 1-inch putty knife. So I just work it in there, and make sure the whole surface is covered. The same on both sides. Try to keep it where you need it, as opposed to on the face of your wood, just like I'm doing now. So you really want to try to get 100% of the wood. Throw a hairline bead in there, just to so you got that inside corner, and you can give this a wipe right away. It's going to help you out. So that piece is ready to go. We'll do the miter too. Let's do this piece. So same deal. Try to keep it off the top of your workpiece, like I'm having a hard time with. Probably because I'm angling my blade funny, but it's spread pretty good. I'm going to get this miter on this side, and I think we're done with the glue. Okay. So, get him where he wants to be. Give this a quick wipe. Get the easy stuff off now. It'll be much easier now than it might be later when it's dry.